From the 305 to the 303, this is TCSP. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Brian and the Casually Serious Band.
Welcome to the Casually Serious Podcast, the Mixtape Legends Battle. Today, Metallica versus Slayer. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Casually Serious Podcast with Bob and KenMan. KenMan, how the hell you doing today, man?
Doing great, Bob. Doing absolutely great. Wonderful, wonderful day here in South Florida. Still loving the weather before the death of summer gets here. How about you? I hear it's a little chilly where you're at, man. Just a touch. It's a little different weather than I'm having.
It is 100% a little chilly. Matter of fact, just when we thought it was we were out of the weeds here on this one, it wound up snowing again. But it's certainly not going to do anything like it did the last few days, where there's about 4 feet of snow out there. But it's melting off. It's just the way it goes out here in Denver, man. It snows and then it just melts away. It doesn't stick around. It's not Alaska or anything like that. So
right.
But nobody move here. Otherwise,
we don't want you in Miami either. We got enough people here, please.
Anyway, I am definitely 100% stoked about what's going to happen right now. Last week we did a Iron Maiden versus Judas Priest, and we had a couple great guests.
That was fun.
Jason McMaster, Stony Grantham, both in Maiden and Priest tribute bands, as well as obviously Dangerous Toys, Bifist, and a lot of stuff. And we went back and forth, had a great discussion, and I think Maiden wound up winning, obviously, but not by as many as I think we thought, if I'm being honest.
Definitely was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. And it also gave me the opportunity, like I know you did, to be able to listen to a little more Priest than we had in a while, for sure. And just to help to appreciate that band a little bit more. So that was great last week to do that.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked about it, and I think everyone did a good job. I mean, it ran a little long, 2 hours and 50 minutes is not necessarily optimum, but again, I was explaining to Jason, and I said to Stoney, I didn't care. It was a conversation with three great friends that have a lot of knowledge. So, like, if I had to go in there and edit, I would have done that, but I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe one day I'll become that editor guy, but
for now, you can edit yourself. Just go through as you go.
So we are going to try and stick to some sort of timetable today. I don't know that we're going to accomplish that feat, but we're going to stick to it anyway, simply because this is what we have going on right now. We are planning on putting album up against album here, and we're talking about the first 5 albums or 5 albums that we've picked, but they're going to start off with the first 5. Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Justice, and the Black Album for Metallica, as well as Show No Mercy, Hell Awaits, Rain and Blood, South of Heaven, and Seasons in the Abyss for Slayer. And we are going to go back and forth and kind of talk about what songs we like and things like that. So what are the parameters for this tonight, Ken?
Basically, what we're going to do is look at the first 5 albums from both bands, which is awesome because the first 5 albums from both bands really helps to define both bands. And they do it in an interesting way as far as what they're doing at the same time, because it is pretty similar. These albums are coming out at very similar times. So they're perfect bands to do this with. And they're also bands that we're huge fans of. So there's a lot of stories that we have just of seeing these bands live and what they meant to us, which is really important to music in general. But overall, I think today, this is going to be a tough one. I mean, last week, I love Maiden, so Priest had no chance. But this is a really, really tough battle this week between these two.
Massively tough. Yeah, I agree with you on 100%. Tammy's in the crowd. How's it going, Tammy? Thanks for coming and hanging out. We're hoping to get a bunch of people watching today, but regardless, we're still going to have this conversation. If you watch it live, awesome. If you watch it later, awesome. Those of you that are watching it right now on the Cannabis Cowboy, Cultivating with the Cannabis Cowboy YouTube page, we do have a new YouTube channel, and I'll pop that up maybe sometime at the end of the show. We're hoping you folks can go ahead and check that out. We'd like you to jump over there to that YouTube channel, because we're looking to stream the Casually Serious podcast basically just from one to one spot really right now, and we're gonna stream it to two different places at this point, two different YouTube channels, but we're eventually trying to get it all the way down to one. So I'm gonna look for that right now and see if I can.
And while he does
it.
that, we're also going to we're going to have battles here with these albums. So we'll be voting between each album, which ones we like better. We'll discuss some songs from the albums. Towards the end, we'll pick our best albums from both and which ones we like overall. And at the end, we will pick, I think, a winner, each of us, between these two bands. For us, I mean, there is really no, obviously, loser with these two, so it's not gonna matter what we say independently, but it'll still be interesting to see how we get there, though. You know.
All right. Yeah, thanks so much for that. I was kind of getting lost there trying to multitask. It's real tough to do.
No worries, man. That's
one of these live things.
That's the least I can do, sitting here with just paper and stuff.
Well, as we are going through the evolution of listening to these bands, we were obviously hanging out with each other, hanging out with lots of people listening to this. And while we're on that note, we are going to bring in somebody to be a third judge on this, because if I'm being honest, I'm a monster Slayer fan, and I know that this guy over here is definitely a monster Metallica fan. And I'm not saying that we have hate for either of these bands. I'm just saying in terms of preferences, it probably would have gone right up the middle. Right. So we are going to bring in somebody right now to sort of break that tie and lend another side of this, because he knows this music as well as we do. He's probably been to every Metallica show with Ken and to every Slayer show with me. So if that is the case, that's probably true. I know he's been to every Slayer show with me, but without further ado, guys, let's bring in our next guest and our judge to help us out with this Legends battle. Jay, what's up, dude?
Just technical questions. Can you hear me shake your heads? Can you hear me? No?
Can you hear me shake your heads? I did not know what you were doing there, man. Yes, well, we can totally hear you.
Your head. Okay, but you're not shaking your head, so. I'm good, man. How are you guys doing? I'm just getting used to technology and stuff like that.
Where are you, like, geographically?
I am at a Love's truck stop in Phoenix, Arizona, which is.
Now, you don't have to give your exact location away. Be careful now.
Which is as shady and scary as it sounds.
All right. So, well, speaking of shady and scary, we've got a couple of debut albums here from Metallica and Slayer that we're going to put up against each other right now. So, without further ado, in the in sort of the time constraint we're going to deal with, at least the one that we're going to put on ourselves, let's get this started. So, this is the first battle, the first matchup in tonight's Legends battle. Kill 'Em All versus Show No Mercy. Yeah, that guy's got a weird voice. Yeah, so those are two great albums. Let's go ahead and pop up. I'm going to go ahead and first put up the Metallica's Kill 'Em All track list on this one. Obviously, you can read right now, but if we're looking for highlights that I'm going to pull out of here, I am automatically going to jump to Four Horsemen. Although Hit the Lights is a killer song to come out with. Mm-hmm. My two songs off of this one are definitely the Four Horsemen and Whiplash. And that's just because I'm pulling two out of there. I can go with probably 5 on this album, maybe 6. There's only a couple that I don't, and I'm not saying that I don't like them. I'm just saying they didn't make like repeat on my tape or on my cassette, on my CD or anything like that. They didn't make repeat as much as some of the other songs did. That album right there, I can remember being in high school with I think maybe Edgar Roman and David Roman and Alexis driving in their Camaro and listening to that song almost every day for a year going home. They were my ride home because I didn't have a car. But that song got burned into my that album got burned into my head. And by the time I think I even got around to listening to Slayer, Show No Mercy, there was such a massive difference between these. There's such a big difference, obviously. They both kind of came out at the same time. They both came out of the same area. Anybody who's seen Murder in the Front Row, it's a really, really killer documentary about these bands and the other bands in the Bay Area. There's the difference between these two albums, and I don't know how to say any of this without sort of like countering anything that I want to say about Slayer that's amazing. That the high-pitched screaming, that that, that they were still, Tom was still doing it at that point. I didn't love that. Even though I loved King Diamond doing it, it almost seemed like anybody outside of Diamond doing that sort of vocal high stuff, it sort of turned me off a little bit. So I didn't listen to a lot of those songs. It wasn't until after I think maybe I'd heard Rain before I even listened to this. So I kind of had to go backward on this one. But if I'm talking production wise, I really think Metallica wins on the production side of this. It just sounds a little bit crisper. I don't know if there's a looseness to some of the Show No Mercy songs, but there's some classic Slayer songs on there too. And they were just sort of, it was a definitive sound where it's not really much different than that right now with Slayer. They just sort of tweaked it a little bit. But if I'm going to be honest and take who I think should win this round in my eyes, I am going with Metallica. Kill 'Em All. I'm taking Kill 'Em All on this one. KenMan, how about you?
I mean, you can't go wrong, obviously, with Kill 'Em All. This was the album that, to me, changed everything. Just getting into this kind of music, this faster style rock. Previously, I was like a Bon Jovi guy, so just to kind of see where I was coming from. This album did that, and it was Whiplash in particular that absolutely got me hooked. To me, in this album, it's more looking at the songs that I didn't like, because I liked a lot of the songs, and Metal Militia and Jump in the Fire, I don't really care too much of those songs. Every other song on that album is an awesome song and would get played over and over and over again by me. I loved that album. As far as Slayer goes, early on, this was something that I was hearing, something I didn't necessarily catch the same as some people did. Again, yeah, maybe the high pitch thing. The speed was even faster now than something I had just kind of gotten into. So I'd have to say I was kind of just not into that whatsoever in the beginning. So this is hands down on the first album. Metallica is going to take it with Kill 'Em All, at least over Show No Mercy for sure. What do you think, Jay?
86 was the year that basically I got into metal. So I started off with both bands' pinnacle albums and then worked my way backwards to their first two. And I won't say turned off to Slayer because of the quality of the recording. It just didn't sound good. Good songs, cool, speedy solos, but it was thin. It wasn't good production. And Kill 'Em All just had so many good songs. And specifically, my favorite on the album is Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth, because it made me want to be a bass player, but made me realize
you were going to say dentist.
but it also made me realize how bad of a bass player I was. So of the two albums, I never purchased Show No Mercy. So I have to go with Kill 'Em All. If it's a comparison between the two, which it is, it's Kill 'Em All. There's just Hit the Lights. I like Phantom Lord. It's kind of silly and kind of funny, but it's a better album. It has, it's 10 songs and it's almost an hour long. Show No Mercy is 10 songs and it's 35 minutes long. Yeah. So they were just shorter, kind of punkier kind of songs. But I have to go with Kill 'Em All on this one as a better album.
Ken, did we miss any parameters on this? Did I select production or song, or what was it again that we were going to judge these on? You said
just which album we like better than the other.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we'll get back to best albums and stuff like that.
There we go. All right. I knew there was something else involved.
Yeah.
I'll keep it short. Kill 'Em All.
Yeah, I got it.
All right.
All three, Kill 'Em All. Metallica wins round one. Sweep.
Bing, bing, bing.
Definitely. And again, I just think, I don't know, there was just something about hearing Slayer and then going back a couple albums, but hearing Kill and going forward with the band that sort of made this a little easier of a decision for me. That's just me personally, though.
Well, I mean, just for Metallica, their debut album, Kill 'Em All is an incredible debut album. I mean, if you were just looking to vote on that alone versus other bands' debut album, that is an incredible debut album right there. That's the way to come into things. Say, hey, we're here. That's a great album.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching right now, share this as much as you can. We appreciate it so much. I put the new link to the new YouTube channel in the comments section. So go ahead and copy, paste, do all that stuff if you need to. Let's see what's going on for round two, guys. Ride the Lightning versus Hell Awaits. All right. Well, this is starting to get a little closer on in my eyes, anyway. So I'm gonna put up Ride the Lightning. Fight fire with fire, ride the lightning, for whom the bell tolls, fade to black, trapped under ice. Like we're talking about 5 songs right off the bat that are continuously in most of my, if it's not Metallica, a heavy metal playlist of some kind. I might not have Cthulhu and Escape in there, but Creeping Death will make it a sort of an appearance as well. That album is friggin' spectacular. There were, for me, there was just some sort of, I guess there was a maturation from one album to the other. So if Kill 'Em All was sort of a garage album, which it sort of sounds like a garage album, but the production was good on it, then Ride the Lightning was definitely more of an attempt at polishing and maybe getting bigger songs and a little bit more melody injected into it. And you know, one of my all-time favorite songs is Trapped Under Ice. It's just, there's just, the pace to this album just seemed insane, almost as if I think anybody who was a fan of Metallica did not think they were able to do this, that they were going to be able to do something faster and better. And on the flip side of that, Hell Awaits, this album sort of, it's still sort of extreme. I mean, actually, it's very dark. With the exception of Hell Awaits, there's not a lot of other songs on here that make a playlist for me, other than maybe At Dawn They Sleep. Necrophiliac is a great one to play at parties, but there's a production problem with Hell Awaits for me. As a drummer, as someone who is massively influenced by Dave Lombardo, there's something real friggin' weird going on with the drums on this album. And overall, there's a muffled sort of filter going on with this album. Even on the actual LP, on the record itself, which is where I first heard this, I just remember kind of being like, damn, are my headphones, screwed up or something like that? But it was still fast paced, and it was even more evil, if I'm being honest, which I did not think, again, to their credit, that Slayer could get any more evil. But, there are some tracks in there that get pretty sick. And I mean, Kill Again is just about somebody who just goes around killing everything and anything they can get their hands on, and it's pretty heavy. And so the lyrical content between the two is started getting a little bit darker, but I just think there was a little bit more of a polish to Ride the Lightning. I don't know. There's a lot more classic songs on that one as well. Even though I love Hell Awaits the song, and it's something that they always play, I don't know, as someone who has seen Metallica or as Slayer 15 times, like myself and this guy down there, Jay, has gone to every Slayer show with me. I don't know that I've heard anything else from that album on any of their set lists. So for me, I am going with Ride the Lightning on this one.
So I'll echo a little bit of what Bob just said as far as the production value, because no doubt there's a big difference here. First of all, in Metallica's jump from Kill 'Em All to Ride and that production value, but then also with where Slayer kind of stayed similar, I think, with Hell Awaits, with still, like Bob said, a muffled kind of sound overall. That really didn't have that punch. So right off the bat, just that alone kind of made it more difficult to listen to. But in the good side of Hell Awaits is that I think lyrically the band definitely made a big jump from Show No Mercy. So you saw kind of the growth there, which is great, but I think maybe the production value didn't catch up. And I think that played into it quite a bit in the way it sounded. I mean, the pop and the sound on Ride is incredible compared to Kill 'Em All. So you saw that big jump. And I mean, obviously, For Whom the Bells Tolls, Fade to Black, there's just incredible anthems on Ride the Lightning, an unbelievable album, and an incredible follow-up to Kill 'Em All, and just is going to be the reason why I'm absolutely, hands down, going to take Ride the Lightning over Hell Awaits. Jay, what say you?
I think side one from Ride the Lightning may be a perfect album side, because it comes out fast and heavy, and then the final song on that side is Fade to Black,
right?
Which when you first hear it, it's the first time you heard acoustic guitar on a Metallica album. The
softer side of Hetfield.
Yeah, and it was an emotional song, and a lot of people didn't like it when it came out because it had to be fast, it had to be angry. and as you grew up, you look back on it and it's like, oh, I get that. But yeah, I have to go with Ride the Lightning for the better album. Just again, as Kenny said, Metallica moved forward. Slayer kind of stayed the same as far as sound and direction, and they were still trying to figure out exactly what they wanted to do. And I think
and they found out that was probably cocaine and beer at one point.
Which
they did not care. But I'll tell you this much: that was sort of the beginning of Metallica saying, you know what, guys, I know you like this, but this is what we're going to do.
Exactly.
That's right. The very beginning of them saying, you know what, that's cool, but we're still going to do this.
And it worked, though. That's the thing. That's a big risk that they took too, and it worked. 100% did it work.
And it's worked several times on different albums. That they've come out and done something that was like, whoa, that's not Metallica, but it turns into being Metallica. So
that's right.
Maybe the ballsiest band out there.
Eventually, not to my liking, but going through what we're going through, let's keep going.
Yeah, man.
What's
All
next?
Right, so let's do with a round 3. Master of Puppets versus Rain and Blood.
Oh man,
this is like choosing your parents. Which one do you like?
Shit. You know what? I'm not even joking you right now when I say the weight of this decision did not hit me until right this second, because I, put together most of the, production of this, and I'm just kind of putting things here to go, oh, that's going to be cool. A little record versus record. And then I realized that it's Master of friggin' Puppets versus Rain and Blood. Arguably the fucking pinnacle, or the album that when normally, I guess if you were to say what's the best Slayer album ever, you're going to say this. What's the best Metallica album? You're going to pick these. You might swing one or the other, but these are always up there. Oh shit. All right, so let's go ahead and kick myself in the. All right, starting off an album with Battery is almost like saying, all right, look, dude, I know that you like what we did before, but we're going to probably just step on your testes right now with all that we have. Going directly into Master. The thing that should not be is an odd sort of change on that one, and Sanitarium sort of slows down a little bit. But then we start getting into the last 4. If I'm talking about my favorite tracks on this one, it's the first one and the last one, Battery and Damage. There's just, with the pace of both of those songs, it is just bang your head ridiculous, man. I remember just listening to it like, what the like, dude, I got to hear that riff again. Like, they just got into it so hard and crushed it on that album. And then we've got Slayer. And I don't know if anybody who's ever heard of Slayer has ever heard of a song called Angel of Death, but if you haven't, then you're watching the wrong Slayer, maybe SA. But this album right here is ridiculous as well. There is not a bad song on this album either. There's probably not a song on this album that they haven't played live at some point that hasn't made their it's made their set list at almost any point. And I will say, I will put Altar of Sacrifice and Jesus Saves back to back up against any 2 songs back to back in the thrash world. If I'm being honest, those 2 songs right there just explode your face. I am going to take, let's see. Let's go and look back over here. Mixed by Michael Wagner. That doesn't swing anything for me. You know what? I'm taking Slayer. I'm taking Rain and Blood, because that's the way it's got to be for Bob.
All right. Hey, look, man, you made some really good points, and this is tough. This is really, really tough. I mean, Master has got to be probably. I mean, it's the best Metallica album. It's where this band absolutely said, again, like Jay said before, this is what we're going to do now. Hey, remember Kill 'Em All, remember Ride. Hey, watch this. And that album, if there's Melting Faces happens, that happened for me listening to Master of Puppets 100% and 1,000 times over, because that's how much I listened to this album over and over. And there's not a bad song. There's nothing you have to go past. You listen to all of it. You don't stop. It's a great, great album. Rain, for me, finally got my interest with Slayer. And I think more than what the songs are, when you showed the back of that album, the more important thing that was on the back of that album was Def Jam and Rick Rubin. That's what finally happened with Slayer, is now they got the sound right. You really heard it. It was crisper. It thumped. I mean, everything sounded the way it should sound. There it was. Probably if it was produced the same way earlier, those songs in the first two albums would have, I think, shown out a little better. But Rain and Blood is absolutely a sick album. Another album you can listen to beginning to end. That's what made this a really tough, because that's what I look at. Okay, who has the best of the songs, and then I'll pick an album. This one's tough because both albums have great songs beginning to end. But all of that said, 100% Master, it's just one of the greatest albums, just hands down, period. So I'm taking Master. Jay.
Master.
This is the first time that Slayer caught up to Metallica as far as the production goes and the sound goes.
Right.
By far, Master of Puppets is Metallica's best album, and by far, Rain and Blood is Slayer's best album. But I have to go with the one that turned me on the most and got me the most into it and just pulled me in. And it has to be the almighty Slayer, Rain and Blood, because it's the perfect thrash metal album. It's the genre defining. Everything points to it. It's before that and after that is when comparing speed metal. It's Rain and Blood. It's the pinnacle.
Brian Smith, Brandon, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming and hanging out. And Tammy makes a good point here. The fact that Rick Rubin did produce Slayer, B-Boys, and Public Enemy brings up a good point, too, because I remember, and us growing up, we spoke about this on the Hip Hop Heads episode of the Mixtape, how growing up in South Florida, we listen to what we're listening to now, but we also have a very deep love and understanding of hip hop, Beastie Boys, all that stuff, all things hip hop. And I remember listening to She Watched Channel Zero from Public Enemy and saying to myself, what is that sample? It's just, holy shit, it's Slayer. It is freaking Slayer. And, and that's exactly what Public Enemy did. And I think Rick Rubin fostered a sort of love of the label of the music, knowing, hey, listen, you might be this and you might be this, but, that doesn't matter. And, Kerry King played the solo for Fight for Your Right to Party on for the Beastie Boys. So there was a great deal of jumping around with all this stuff. So Rick Rubin definitely did a lot of crazy, awesome things for Slayer, not only with their sound, but the way they sort of, I think, thought about other genres and stuff.
It took all the reverb off the vocals before it sounded like he was singing into a cardboard box.
Right.
He just took all that off, and it was just him and a microphone, and he brought the drums up, and it was just crisp. It was the first time
it worked.
That Slayer was on par with Metallica.
Right. Totally agree.
Yeah, well, great points, and I agree. And that was just another Impossible Legends thing going on right there. Where
I think we got over the hard one right in the middle. It's like the hump there. Now we're coming down the backside here on the last two.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's see what we've got here for round number 4. And Justice for All versus South of Heaven. All right, so as we just explained that we could probably say that Master of Puppets is the best Metallica album. When we're talking about my favorite Metallica album, this is my favorite Metallica album. By far, and I remember saying something about the odd production for Hell Awaits and Dave Lombardo. I know there's a lot of crazy talk about what Lars did with this and his snare as well as his bass drum. But at the same time, it was beautiful. Starting off with Blackened, and you can definitely see the narcotic influence of what got a hold of Metallica on this album, which is very, very well documented, how much blow they were doing at this time, to the point where they decided to make every song about, 6 minutes. Before they were a thrash band, and now they are like a thrash metal orchestra with the shortest straw just beating your face in. Harvester of Sorrow. There's really not a lot of slowness going on, and even one, which is considered their slow song. And I remember as a fan kind of being disappointed that they made a video for that, because they really went on record saying they weren't going to do that. And, oh, how dare you change? And young Bob was not cool with that. But that album is powerful and long, and it's almost like, I'm coming from a drummer's perspective. Lars went crazy on this to the point where later he forgot how to play a lot of these songs, notably Shortest Straw, which is a very big drum intro. But that's just such a great album. And then we've got South of Heaven on the other side of this, where obviously still on Def Jam with Rick Rubin, starting off with South of Heaven, which is a very, very big song. Into Silent Scream, Live Undead's amazing. Behind the Crooked Cross. These songs are all badass. Ghost of War is one of my favorite Slayer songs, and I didn't know this until much later, but number 9 track, Dissonant Aggressor, is a Judas Priest song, and it's fitting that they just decided to use the guitar notes instead of trying to sing that part that Rob Halford sings, like they just with the guitar, because there's no one in the band that's going to sing that. There's a lot of good songs on this one, and if I'm not mistaken, this album was a bit of an experiment for Slayer, because I think it was recorded live. And by that, I don't mean recorded live in front of a studio audience. I meant live, meaning they weren't tracking anything. They all played these songs together at the same time. I'm pretty sure that's how it went in a room. I'm pretty sure that's how this went down. So in terms of production, that's insane. So we're talking two sort of groundbreaking different productions going on between these two albums. And you know what? Damn. This I think I was thinking I was going to go one way on this one, but I talked myself out of it. I'm going with Injustice for All. I'm going with Metallica on this one.
All right. So you make good points there, and I heard Jay mention earlier about Rain and Blood, and I'm sure everybody would pick Rain and Blood. I love South of Heaven. This is the album that is my favorite Slayer album, and it's an album to me where I finally kind of liked what I heard in Rain and Blood, and I was interested for more, and I loved what I got out of this album. Whereas Injustice for All, Metallica again went ahead and did Metallica, and I vibed with it somewhat, but not as well as I did earlier. There's 4 songs on that album I have no interest in whatsoever, like at all. Harvester, on the other hand, is one of my favorite Metallica songs, period. And I mean, I love Harvester. So it's a great jam. Obviously, Blackened's great jam. They rock on this album, but there's songs on there that I don't need to hear. I can't say that at all about South of Heaven. So for sure, Slayer wins this round for me.
Wow, badass. That's crazy. And I remember sort of hearing Dyer's Eve and hearing that double bass throughout the whole song, and I'm like, I dare Lars to do that for an incomplete tour. I dare him, because I haven't seen any live footage of him doing that correctly, which is just too high of a cocaine bar to set yourself in sort of a studio setting. Jay Badnell, what say you, buddy?
Both of these albums are vastly different than the predecessors.
Mm-hmm.
Metallica actually sped up, and Slayer actually slowed down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because what are you going to do? You're going to make Rain and Blood Part 2? No, you go off in a different direction, and you South of Heaven has a groove. Like, you can actually sit there and, not dance to it, but you can feel it.
You could dance to it.
You can dance
to it. Not at our age. I learned that the hard way. And Justice for All is just such an important album to me personally when it came out. And, I remember riding around on my bicycle with the boombox duct taped to the handlebars. So of the two albums, if I had to listen to one right now, start to finish, I would go with Injustice for All. It's the album I'm choosing.
All right.
I can say with almost 100% certainty that Dr. Brian of Dr. Brian and the Casually Serious Band absolutely hated this album, to the point where I think he might have thrown it against a wall or thrown it out or yelled or something. I know he friggin' hated it. And I think, I don't know if I did introduce him to Slayer. I know that he says he credits me with introducing him to music, but my brother introduced it to me. So there was a chain of command on that one. But I remember specifically him getting very upset about South of Heaven. So,
yes.
Specifically, and I get it.
Spill the blood, specifically.
Right. Spill the blood. Yeah, you're right. Because he would get spill the blood. He made fun of it really hard. Shout out to Dr. Brian. We love you, man.
You're the best, speaker.
Yeah. Yeah, those were that was a definitive slowdown, like you said, a little bit of a slowdown, and it was definitely a speeding up of Metallica. But I don't know, there was just something going on because of the cocaine, definitely. And I don't know. I mean, there's so many good songs in both of those. That was a lot tougher than I thought it would be. But again, I think maybe if I'm talking about how many songs make it on my rotation, I just think that Injustice sort of beat that one up a little bit. But,
yes.
All right, guys. Well, we've got the last one here, and this is a very weird last one. I don't really know, if I'm being honest, if I thought that I would. Well, never mind. Let's see what it is. The Black Album versus Seasons in the Abyss. Metallica. Young Bob is very, very pissed off at you right now. We don't know what happened to you. We don't know if what happens to you when you go from rehab to the real world is what the Black Album becomes. But Bob was not happy with you, to the point where I literally did take this album and pop it. I had it on CD, took it out of the CD player and threw it out. And I don't think I listened to the Black Album for another 10 years, 12 years. And by listen to it, meaning listen to it and give it a shot. I've forcefully been heard 5 or 6 songs from that album that I don't want to ever hear again. It's just not part of the Metallica that I love. And I know a lot of people aren't cool with saying that or hearing that. And there's a lot of Metallica fans that say you should follow them through all metamorphosis. No, not necessarily. I don't fucking have to. I'm a fan. When we're talking about these albums now, I think I was able to give this album another chance later on. And I can't give you any song titles other than Enter and maybe Unforgiven, Wherever on My Roam. I listened to it about maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago. No, actually, matter of fact, about almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago on my honeymoon. I was just flying. I think we were flying to Hawaii. I was like, let me try and hear Black. And I listened to it and I was like, all right, I get it. And I'm a late bloomer, so I get into stuff later. I wasn't getting with the maturation of Metallica at that time. However, this album right here, starting off with War Ensemble, going through all of these amazing songs. Expendable Youth was still slow, but somehow still very fast. Dead Skin Mask is something that provided a lot of humor for myself and Jay for many years. Hollowed Point, Born of Fire is probably my second favorite Slayer song of all time. This album, by far, to me, is their best work. It is the complete maturity of Slayer, sound-wise, songwriting, anything that might have seemed kitschy or outdated, or maybe something that was just not something that was a little older for even Slayer to be doing. That was all kicked to the curb on this album and completely blew me away, to the point where I said to myself, we've got to go see them. And that's what spawned the very first time myself and Jay saw Slayer ever in Miami, Florida at the Cameo Theater, was on the tour for this album. For me, there is no contest whatsoever. Seasons in the Abyss absolutely crushes Metallica's Black Album and sends it home and doesn't let it come back to school for a month.
As it should. Seasons is, I agree with you 100%. That is the culmination right there of a band that's kind of, started out where they did with production values lower, and then pulled it all the way through to an album that just kicks ass from beginning to end. I don't even want to talk about Metallica or Black or whatever that stupid album is called. You could play the first 3 or 4 songs and they're all the same. It's all of that. That's all terrible. It's all terrible music.
Do we blame it on Bob Rock? Is that what we do?
If young Bob was mad at Metallica, young Kenny was really bitter, because first of all, I wanted no part of seeing them on MTV. So I was already pissed with Injustice. There was other songs on that album that I already was kind of kicking Metallica to the curb. For them to come back with that was it for me. That's where the chords cut with this band. So, but the 3 albums are incredible. Now with Slayer, it feels like these bands did the opposite. Metallica came in on fire. I mean, like I said, debut album, Kill 'Em All, just crushed it right out of the gate. right into to Ride the Lightning and to Mastered. They just kept ascending and ascending. And then they changed. They did Metallica, like was said earlier, which is great. Do the video, have a top 40 song, win a bunch of Grammys, do the things that are going to make you popular musicians. Cool, man. I mean, that's the dream. But it did a little something to the diehard fans that made us just, I don't know. I'm not going to even say that because maybe I'm not a diehard fan because I'm saying that. So for those of us that appreciated those earlier albums and kind of where their sound was and where they went, I feel like is the opposite of what Slayer did, where they grew and continued, and their later albums were better than their earlier albums. So these two bands did kind of a similar thing, which is why we fought so hard with the Master and Reign right in the middle, because that's where they were crossing. That was right where it was, where they were both just hitting their strides real well, which makes the overall contest very difficult. But in general, for this particular album, for sure, I'm taking Seasons. Jay?
Yeah, this one's just a no-brainer, incredibly easy. You can't be mad at Metallica. 16-year-old Jay or 18, whatever he was mad at Metallica, but you can't be mad at them for finding success, because who starts a band to be like, I just want to be a mid-level band that travels in a bus and plays 2,000 seaters. Right. So they did exactly what every band wanted to do. They succeeded. Yep. And they made a monster. There were, I think, 4 or 5 number one singles off of that album. Yep. How many came off of Seasons in the Abyss? None. But Seasons in the Abyss destroys on every single level, aspect, everything. Destroys the Black Album. I never bought the Black Album, ever. Never owned it. As I've grown older, I can now appreciate some of their songs, wherever I may roam, maybe because of what I do for a living. I listen to it when it comes on, but Seasons in the Abyss was just a crusher. Every song, every one point every night we listened to that album. That was always in the tape deck for years. And Metallica never was. Bob Rock had a lot to do with it. He really influenced the band. Yeah. And they saw what they could become and how big they can be, and they went for it, and God bless them, good for it. They furthered the genre, if that's the right way to say that word.
Genre? Yeah.
They went forward and they pulled the other bands with them.
Right.
Yeah, it's almost like they did set a high bar. And again, I think going back, like you said, 16, 18, I forgot the year, what age we would be, but you can't really fault them now. Looking back as an adult, it's almost like there's no possible way that our young ass was going to make a young adult decision like Metallica made to go ahead and be worldwide and blow the entire planet up and make everyone love them, not just the headbangers. And I think headbangers, Rip Jeans, Spikes, the folks that were like us that were listening to this music felt a little left behind, is what I think it was. It was sort of like, not only was it a maturation, it was a departure. It was almost like, now this is what we are. And I remember saying, okay, if that's the case, then I'm fucking going to Camp Slayer. Yeah. Because they've got dead skin masks and cookies.
We were the expendable youth.
Yes, exactly. And there was just something about that album where it completely set it off. And obviously, and what's funny is that you're mentioning this. So we mentioned we don't necessarily love the fact that we saw one as a video, but I love Seasons in the Abyss's video. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's so weird how we held them to sort of different standards, because I don't think we'd ever say Slayer sold out.
They said it. That was the problem, is that they talked about not doing it so much. It's like, don't push towards that, and then all of a sudden, oh well, hey, this is what we're going to do. We didn't know what we were talking about. We were a bunch of kids. Whatever. Yeah. I mean, look, that's impressionable to us at a young age. As adults, we see it, we understand it. But as a youngster, to me, honestly, at the end of the day, it was the music anyway. If I like the sound, I like the sound. That's all there really was to it. And I just didn't like the sound on the Black Album at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't tell you a production. I can't give you a production. I think it was probably, when I listened to it in its entirety, it was definitely a good record in terms of put together. It was put on a platter for everyone, for a young cheerleader to listen to and be like, I think that's pretty cool.
That's why it's #1 songs and all the Grammys and all that's what they wanted. That's what they got. So now it doesn't. Metallica's no longer in this category anymore. Metallica is in a different world. And after 1990, where both bands just started making albums and nobody cares about, which is why we're not talking about anything beyond these.
Hey, Slayer's last 3 albums were great.
Yeah, but who produced those 3 albums?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure it was Rick Rubin.
I think you are right. I think they re-signed with Def Jam or Def Jam America now.
But what my problem was with, even though we're not talking about that, my problem with the last 3 albums, starting with Christ Illusion, is that they all sound like Christ Illusion. So what they did was they found a Slayer sound and ran with it for 3 consecutive albums, and that's not what I'm used to. And my real issue with Slayer past Seasons in the Abyss is the disclusion of Dave Lombardo. Dave Lombardo was one of the greatest thrash drummers ever to me. He definitely influenced the way I play, the way I want to play, the what I aspire to be. Not taking anything away from Bo Staff, anybody that might have played with Slayer, whether it be on records or tours, but I just didn't listen to anything from Slayer that had anybody other than Dave Lombardo. So apparently that's sort of a thing with me. I didn't really love Kiss after 78 or anything that had to do with any other iterations of Kiss other than the original 4.
You're a purist.
I might be, but we're talking about, Slayer. It's almost like this is the first thrash family, and how dare you get rid of this drummer? There's no way you can fill that void, but they did. Yeah. But I've seen Slayer with Jay 15 times, the most out of any band out of all the shows I've seen, and I have never seen Metallica live. Ever.
That's very interesting.
Not for any reason. I actually, there's a real good reason, because after this, there's no way I'm not going to see them. And I'm not going to see them play anything from this album. And I don't even want to know what they become after that.
Exactly.
Well, and they play Mile High stadiums, and the tickets are $146 each. So
yeah,
but good for them. But good for them for being able to sell out Mile High Stadium at $150 a pop.
Right. All right. Yeah. So now the hard question is, all right, we got to do this now. This is what we're going to do real quick here. We're going to pick. We're going to pick our favorite album from each band, and then from that we're going to pick which is our favorite album of those 2. So we're going to pick our favorite Metallica album, our favorite Slayer album, and then we're going to pick from those 2 what the overall favorite is for us. And we'll start with Bob.
Jeez, Wiz McGillicuddy. All right, so you want me to pick my favorite Slayer and my favorite Metallica album?
Right.
I thought I just said that, but we'll reiterate on it. And again, it's really tough. It's between these 2 right here for Metallica for me. I'm going to take. I'm taking Master of Puppets, actually, if I'm being honest. I know I just said that Injustice is my favorite, but there's just too many. There's a lot more great thrash songs on Master than there are on Injustice. In my opinion, there's a lot of new stuff going on with Injustice. In terms of Slayer, I think there's still a big battle between Rain and Seasons. And as much as I know, shit. I'm taking Seasons in the Abyss as my favorite Slayer album of all time.
Okay. And of Master and Seasons, who you taking? One album, Desert Island. Who you got?
Fuck. You're fired. I'm taking Seasons.
Seasons, nice.
I'm taking Seasons. Just because I have to hear Born of Fire at one point again in my life.
Nice. All right. Jay?
Favorite Metallica is, I don't think it's their best album, but my favorite Metallica is Injustice for All.
Okay.
Because of when it came out, where I was, who I was, what it meant to me. We
were 16.
And great songs. Dyer's Eve is my favorite Metallica album or song ever. Slayer would also be Seasons in the Abyss. I'm with Bob on that. Just because of the times we had and how good the songs were. And of the 2, I am going with Seasons in the Abyss.
Wow, look at this. Sorry, just taking some notes here. Okay, so
Terrifying.
for me, it's definitely between Master and Ride the Lightning, and even Kill 'Em All gets a little play here because it was the first album that got me into Metallica. This is a hard one. I mean, all three of these albums were huge for me, and what really made me a Metallica fan. I listened to these albums over and over and over again, but I would just have to say, just because of progression of the band, I'm going to take Master, just because of what they did, through those three albums and ultimately culminated with that just masterpiece right there. I'm going to take Master. And I honestly, through this show, kind of talked myself into really, really realizing how good Seasons is.
Yep.
Over who I really liked South of Heaven, because South of Heaven kind of got me into it. But Rain was really the first one that turned me back on to Slayer. So I'm actually going to take Rain and Blood, because that album was the one that really did make me a Slayer fan and then want to listen to these albums after. So I'm going to take Rain and Blood and Master of Puppets as my two here. And I'm taking Master as my album overall.
There are no wrong answers, man.
There really are not. There's
No.
none. There can't be. There can't be here.
No, those let me tell you that these albums are insane. Like, and the great thing is that we were blessed with so many other bands that were able to do this that we might actually have to battle, if I'm being honest. We're talking about the Anthraxes of the world, Megadeth, obviously, but even like Death Angel. There's just so many bands that encompass this thrash world that I love to death, because it was a definitive grow. I don't know if it was a counter of punk rock, but it had a lot to do with punk rock. And the reason I love punk rock a lot. I grew up listening to the 80s punk that was, the real punk, and Lombardo was a big fan of that and brought a lot of that musicianship and drumming to Slayer, and at least gave Hahnemann, I think, a lot of schooling on a lot of punk stuff, and they were playing a lot of that shit.
On the notes, I listened to the first two Slayer albums today, start to finish, and the main note I got was like, these are punk songs. They were all 3 minutes long. They were all super quick, no chorus, just blow through it next, blow through it next. So yeah, very punk, heavily influenced by punk.
Stoney, thanks for saying what's up, man. Good to see you. David Hill, dude, it looks like I don't think I've seen you on a podcast before, man. It's good to see you, dude. Real good to see you, man.
And Testament and Overkill are two of my favorite thrash bands out there that never, we've seen Testament more than anyone else because they have always opened up for the Slayers and the Anthraxes and those guys.
Yeah, I've never compiled that list. I wonder how many times we've seen Testament. That's a great point, man.
I've seen Testament more times than Slayer. So,
wow, that's a good point, dude. Wow. Okay.
Amazing musicians.
So this all basically was to figure out, hey, who wins this battle? So
the fans
with TCSP's analytics done here, the analytics show that of a score of 10-8, an incredibly close score of 10-8, Metallica wins the battle.
Wow.
So close. So
what?
Close.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, if I'm being honest. We had a lot of reasons why I think that made sense to us.
It was justice. Honestly, it was justice that put it over, because you guys just jumped all over that crap album and I wanted nothing to do with it. So, I'm just saying that's what it came down to. And Justice for All had saved Metallica to be the winner.
Hey.
There's just a lot of songs on that album, and they're just so. Look at this. To Live Is to Die. Yeah, for 9.5 minutes or more. I mean,
and there's just one verse of lyrics, one line.
And we were okay with it. We fucking took it hook, line, and sinker, man.
That was the last piece of music that Cliff Burton ever wrote.
Oh, really?
So that is his song. He wrote all the music. He wrote all the music and the lyrics, or maybe not all of it, but he set the tone. And they built off of that. That was his legacy, I guess. So that's why they included it on the album.
I didn't know that. Good information. Wow. Good fun fact right there.
Knowing is half the battle.
So Metallica won very, very, and I really honestly thought that I was going to have more Slayer answers, but I tried not to. I didn't need to give any. I didn't need to listen to brush up too much on too many songs. I think maybe I I think I went back to a lot more early Slayer than I had to go back to early Metallica because it was just burned in my head early Metallica. But I don't know. I think maybe I was gonna come out of this one Slayer heavy, and I didn't. And so I surprised myself a little bit in that one. If I'm being honest. Anything surprising come out for you, Ken?
No, I mean, listening to a little more older Slayer, those first couple of albums that I, didn't really get into until after I'd already listened to Rain, and then kind of went backwards. I think Jay was mentioning that earlier. I did kind of the same thing there too. So, I guess being able to listen to some of that again, I don't know, kind of solidified how I felt even back then. That, I mean, really, if anyone who's never heard Slayer listen to those first two albums, and all of a sudden you pop Rain and Blood in, and it's just, you feel it, it's a different sound. You're gonna be able to appreciate the band so much more starting with that album. And look, I know there's purists out there screaming like, "Are you crazy?" I know there's lyrically there's a lot of good stuff on the first two albums too. I'm really just talking more production value than anything else for me, and just being young and just kind of, this is what I need to hear, and this is how I need to hear it.
And Slayer went through, I think, there's only a few pictures of it, and they took it off really quick, but they had like the dark eye makeup at one point, and it was very theatrical with blood and
the early days.
Yeah, they really kind of did away with this. They went through sort of an image, a crisis of image for a little bit, and cleaned all that up, and then eventually just went, I don't even know, the fucking 90s. I seen Kerry King in like biker shorts and like tank tops, so he just wore whatever the hell he wanted to wear. There was never like a style with that band, but the style they started off with was not popular, and I think people gave them a lot of shit for that. I think they mentioned it actually, Murder in the Front Row. They were like, "Dude, take that fucking mascara off," or whatever. But there was definitely a more of an evil, dangerous tone, but it still felt like Metallica had more of a crunch and a punch to their music. No matter how evil Slayer was, Metallica was still just so fucking badass, and riffage, and as much as I think Lars sort of has taken a decade off, the last decade in live performances I've seen, I still think he's groundbreaking. He is another massive influence on me as a drummer, man. Yeah. What about you, Ken?
Me too. Oh, yeah, definitely me too with Lars, 100%, as was Lombardo. And I feel like a lot of it, though, came from Lars's, being such a frontman for the band. It's rarely as a drummer so outspoken in any band. And Lars really was the guy who was in the front of that band. Just kind of when it came to tabloids or reading about the band, you were always hearing about what Lars thought about his band. So there were things about, Lars, and as we know, all of those guys, as fame kind of got to them a little bit, I think, and changed things. And that kind of plays a lot into what I was just going to mention real quick. For me, as seeing Slayer nowhere near as much as these guys did, but I was lucky enough to see them on the farewell tour. And part of just watching a band play for the last time, and for a group to really take a hard look at their fan base. This band really did it. I've never been at a show. I felt like the band almost like looking into my soul. I mean, they really took a good hard look. I know you guys saw this too when you saw the farewell tour, but I don't know. It made me walk away from the show a little teary eyed. I was like, man, I feel for these guys, man. Like they're taking it in because they know this is it. And I literally walked away from that show. I know you guys, because you guys are diehards. I'm not even a diehard, but I'm just saying I felt it so much from watching that, and I sat there for maybe 20 minutes after, and they did too, up and down the stage, just waving, thanking, looking. It was pretty incredible. And I guess at some point, Metallica's gonna get to that point and do a farewell tour that I may go pay $987 to go see, because that's what they're going to want for it. Not kidding. I'm not going to pay that much to see them unless they promise me the set list I want, and then maybe I'll go.
That's exactly why Metallica does not have a ticket stub in my collection, because I could not be promised that Black would not make it onto their shit. And granted, I'm not saying that I couldn't sit through 4 Black album songs to listen to everything else, But
Right.
at this point, we're talking about so much more shit.
Right. On top of those
it.
4 black songs.
I can't fucking do it, man. I can't do it.
I get you, man. I'm with you on that. I think we're, kind of similar with that. This really shows that these two bands, this was a great battle. Slayer just didn't quite get it. Iron Maiden won in a pretty close battle last week against Priest. So both Maiden and Metallica are moving up into the winner's circles. We'll have another battle next week. We'll see who keeps moving up, and who knows, Metallica may meet Maiden on a battle coming up here, and to find who the real champion is.
Well, I'm going to give a couple shout outs here. Tammy, thank you for showing up as always. Thank you so much. Brian Smith, Brandon Reddick. Who else? I think we saw, David Hill popped in there, man. I haven't seen you in a while, David. Good to see you. Stoney, as always. Thanks for hanging out with us last week. Thanks so much for kicking it with us today, seriously. And again, I guess really there's no clear winner, but there is in terms of these 3 squares that are hanging out right now. Yeah, there's a clear winner, and I think Metallica definitely won that one. So, guys, do you have anything you want to say before we get on out of here?
Thank you very much for having me on. It was fun. It was a weird comparing these two back, because it's always Metallica versus Megadeth. So this took that one out, and it was like, no, we'll put it up against this one. It was tough, and I still like Slayer better, but that's okay.
I like Slayer better. If anybody out there, if anybody out there has a suggestion for what you would like to see next week with our Legends battle, because I think we're going to roll with this for a couple more. Give us some suggestions. Give us a shout on Facebook, the Casually Serious Podcast. We are on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Metallica and Slayer for all the work that you've given to us, and all the blood, the sweat, and the tears, all the live music, everything you've done. Your music is just as much a part of our soul as anything else we've listened to growing up. So thank you to the bands. Thank you, KenMan. Thank you, Jay. And we will see you next week.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. St. Patty's Day. Go Irish.
Let's see you. Let's see y'all next week. Slayer's way cooler, dude.